you always find in a flower shop, when you start to do a bit of stock take, there's always them one odd containers that's left in the corner. So this is one of these containers that's been floating around the flower school a couple of years at this stage. So what I've done, there's a frog's leg in the end, and I've 2/3 of a block of Oasis, and it's wedged down there tight, like it's not going to move, so I'm not even going to use anchor tape on it. I just went out to the garden, and my garden is very small, as a lot of you know, so I've just picked a couple of little varieties. So a little bit of the euonymus, and again, no particular pattern. This is something that people can just copy at home. So a little bit of euonymus there. I have a little bit of ceanothus I'm going to stick over there. I have a little bit of red robin. I've had this greenery floating or kind of submerged in water. I have a couple of little bits of hebes. There's more little bits of hebes there. What else? I have little bits of tree fern. I had this from the school. That's not from my own garden. I've an odd little ivy leaf sticking down individually. Another little bit of red robin. I'm going to stick that over here. I'll just take another bit off the end of the stem. There, we'll stick it in. Another little bit of euonymus. I'll cut that a bit shorter. So I'm doing a kind of a grouping, but without being too fussy. A few more little bits of hebe, so I'll stick them kind of in here in the centre. A little bit of that black pittosporum, the Tom Thumb pittosporum. I love that, by the way. If anybody's ever looking for things to grow in your garden, plant a little bit of the Tom Thumb. It's just kind of getting its new growth on it now. Another little bit of ceanothus, I'll stick that in over here. Another few little ivy leaves, I'll stick them in here. So you can see, very, very random sort of effect. Not really sure what the name of this is. It's kind of a laurel-y sort of thing. Haven't a clue, so I'm sticking a little bit of that in as well. And I've seen that in the neighbour's garden. That's not in my own garden. There was a bad leaf on that one. I'll have to tell her that there's a few bad bits on her foliage. Another little bit euonymus. We'll stick that into this corner here. Another few little bits of hebe. So you can see random rubbishy bits of greenery from around your own garden. I found another bit of the black Tom Thumb. We'll come around here. And now what I'm going to do is, again, just in between that is a few bits of tree fern, just to cover in the spaces that I haven't got any more foliage left. I just didn't rob enough. That's really what it was. So if you're at home yourself, you can kind of gather up a few more varieties of foliage or increase the quantities of the bits that I had. As you can see, it was fairly pathetic, the bits and selections that I had. So I'm just kind of using the tree fern to fill in any other little spaces that I can kind of see. And sure, the flowers will cover the rest of the foam. So I'm not worried about covering every little bit of it. So hopefully anybody that's watching, you'll be able to do that part really easy. Like no flower arranging skills involved. Anybody that has kids, the kids that enjoy making these, really, really simple. So the next stage then is, what have you got flower wise? If you're watching from a flower shop, you always have ends left over. Do you know that way? Maybe there was 2 Germanies left over. Maybe you had that one stem of lilies. Mine are fairly tight. Obviously none of mine are left over because it's a new delivery of flowers that I got in. But I'm trying to make it that it's a way of using up your waste bucket or your ICU, or again, anybody that's working at home. You know the way you'd go to the supermarket and you'd buy a mixed bunch of flowers, and there's one of each thing in the bunch. You know the way? And you kind of think, how can I make an arrangement? Once the colours tone together, this can work out really well. So we'll start with our lilies. Sometimes in a flower shop, they break the lilies and they're raging with themselves. Don't worry, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut up these heads fairly short. There was 4 heads on these lilies. When you're buying in the lilies, you kind of get the choice. Do you want to buy them with 3 heads, 2 heads, 4 heads, 1 head? Now, even though I'm going to group these, I'm going to leave a little bit of space in between them, because I know these lilies are going to open huge, you know what I mean, like eventually. So I'm just sticking one over the edge there. I'm going to step back a little bit and put in a second one, step back a little bit, put in a third one, step back a little bit and put in a 4th one. So it's not really grouping as such, because I'm leaving space in between them that them lilies can open. And then I have a couple of the Germanies. So I'll start over on the corner that I'm looking at. And I'm going to stick in this Germany here. People find it difficult to get Germanies into Oasis. The trick I find is hold them at the end of the stem when you're inserting, and then they'll go in handy enough. So I thought I had 2, but I've actually 3 of them. But don't feel that you have to have 3 of these. You get away with whatever you happen to have. I have 1 stem of the Lysianthus flowers. Again, if you ever watch, you say, God, she's mad about the Lysianthus. I am mad about Lysianthus. I just think it's a great flower. So again, I'm going to cut it up. These are excuse me, these are obviously purple Lysianthus, but they're the doubles in the Lysianthus. So you get double the amount of petals on them and the great lasting flower. You don't get that many open ones when you buy them in. So again, I'm going to pick a spot, eeny, meeny, miny, mo. I'm going to pick this corner here and I'm going to stick in our 2 purple Lysianthus that happen to be open. But you find that the rest of the flowers, even there's a third one there, even though the rest of them are on the same stem, you can see that they're a different shade, but that looks really well. So again, I'm just going to pick a little spot here. I'm going to put all the green buds in together. I'll put that little purple one over there with the other purple ones. And over in this corner here, I'm putting in a couple of the green Lysianthus flowers. Now, these won't open much further than they are, and they won't turn out purple. That's kind of like the funny part about them, but I do think the green is contrasting with the purple and it is going to look really well. This area, you do have to remember that the lilies are going to open. Now what I have is a couple of little bits of the wax flower, and again, if you watch me, you'll say, God, she's mad about wax flower. I am mad about wax flower. Again, it's something we always happen to have here at the school, and I just think it's a great filler, you know, that way here and there. So again, I'm just randomly sticking in little bits of wax flower here and there. Now this would be a great little arrangement just to give as a gift to somebody. So instead of like going to your supermarket or your local florist and buying a mixed bunch, why don't you rub some greenery on your way home from the flower shop, or you can buy some greenery in your local flower shop. And if you have some sort of container in the house, why don't you make up an arrangement something like this? And also what I happen to have, I'm not going to use all this stem by the way, but I have these fabulous orchids. But normally with orchids, I find like this stem might be quite too long. So I never cut the top off to make them shorter. I always take it off from the end to make them shorter. So I'm just going to cut this stem. I'll just show you now what I'm going to do. I'm going to cut that one there and I'm going to cut that one there. So what I've done is I've cut that one, right? But even rather than cutting it off as an individual head, by leaving it on the main trunk, that's how I get the little bit of length. And this was the part that was joined on. So again, instead of cutting them off as individual flowers, do you see the way I cut the main chunk, right? So now then I'm able to stick that trunk or chunk of a stem down into the floral foam over here near where them lilies are, because again, until them lilies open, it can look a little bit bare in that area. And I'm going to cut this one. Looks a bit ugly looking, but sure, again, I stick it down into the floral foam. It's going to be absolutely perfect in there. And them little tubes always come on the end of the orchids. When you buy them, there's a special orchid food in that water. So it is much better to keep the orchids in them tubes, or vials as they're called. And when you're finished with your orchids, I'll be using them orchids in another arrangement. When you're finished with them, empty out the water. So what I'm going to do here now is pour the water from this down on top of the floral foam. That'll feed the floral foam with the orchid food, and that'll help to prolong the life of the orchids. And then I'll keep this little vial, and I use that in my bridal work. So again, if you've ever been on my event hotel decoration course, you see I use them vials quite a lot. And then as another little bit of packing, because I want to make this look really wild and wonderful looking, I'm going to stick a couple of little sprigs of gyp. This is the overtime gyp, which has the slightly bigger balls on it, or bigger heads on it. So I'm using this just as another little bit of filler. So that's a great way of using up like your waste bucket, or a mixed sponge, or a mixture of heads that you happen to have left over, or maybe you had a bouquet of flowers that you got as a present off somebody, and some of the flowers started to die and looked a little bit tatty looking. Well, maybe cut them short and pack them down into a little container like what I have here today, and there you have your little gift arrangement. So hopefully you enjoyed that. Make sure to give me the thumbs up. Definitely click share. The more shares I get, the more demonstrations I'll do. And if you enjoyed it and you'd like to see more, why not follow me on YouTube? Just Google YouTube Kay's Flower School, and you'll see I have lots of these really simple tutorials that you can copy at home yourself. You don't need any flower arranging skills. You don't have to be creative. It's just a great way of using up materials from your own garden. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Thank you.